supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, and founder of the Blended Pledge. And we've got a really exciting show for you today. Eric Johnson, he is the host of Logtech Live on Let's Talk Supply Chain. He's going to be joining me today, and we're going to be talking about some of the hot topics, and you're not going to want to miss this, but supply chain professionals, you can make a huge impact. We're going to talk about that. But first, let's hear from our show sponsor, and then let's get into what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So are you ready to find your community? If you are struggling to find a supply chain community of like-minded professionals where you can level up, network, learn about best practices from experts in supply chain, professional development, and marketing, look no further. We created the Secret Society of Supply Chain to provide a safe space, a community for everyone in supply chain. We offer unique opportunities for everyone to connect and grow in 3 distinct value-packed communities. One is the supply chainers. 2 is our Woman in Supply Chain virtual monthly meetup. And the Creative Room is our virtual monthly meetup for marketing professionals in supply chain. It's our marketing mastermind that you're not going to want to miss out on. And it's truly a place for everyone. So head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com and explore which community was made for you. Now, if you're watching, if you're tuning in, I want to hear from you. So let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from. All right. So we've got a brand new episode. I can't believe it, but it's episode 416. How did we get into the 400s? And that doesn't even include the amount of shows I've done for Thoughts and Coffee too. It's crazy, and love all of your support. So this episode is about uncovering top supplier management challenges of 2024. Now, we collaborated on this episode with Relish. Now, if you don't know much about Relish, go and check out our first episode with them, because we talk all about who they are and what they do and why they called themselves Relish. But in this particular episode, we take a deep dive into supplier management, and you're going to want to know some of the top risks that you need to be looking out for, what you can uncover from your supplier management. So go and check that out, episode 416, wherever you listen to the show. All right, so tomorrow, Relex is going live, and they're going to be talking about dealing with uncertainty in retail, in supply chain. Now, you don't want to miss this one. We've got a bunch of people signed up for this one already. They go live at 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow across the Let's Talk Supply Chain, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Go and click the attend button. Even if you can't attend live, we're going to send you the link so you can watch that. And then on Thursday, I'm going live at 1 p.m. Eastern with the team over at Reveal. And we're going to be talking about parcel efficiency, plugging cache leaks with cutting edge technology. But not only that, we're going to be talking about some pretty crazy stories. So you're going to want to tune in for that, because we're going to hear what happened, how they got through it, and what they needed to do to change that. So if you are shipping anything parcel, you want to tune into this, click the attend button. We will send you the link even if you can't attend live. Next, we've got Supply Chain Unfiltered with Christine Barnhart. Now, she's going live Wednesday, July 17th, and she's talking about mastering supply chain evolution with the ASCM. And you want to bring your questions, right? If you've got any questions about ASCM, you're going to want to go and make sure you attend it, ask your questions, but click the attend button and we'll send you the link if you can't attend live. And last but not least, July 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be hosting a webinar with Supply Chain Brain and Oliver Wright. And we're going to be discovering how to move beyond math and working capital budgets. We're going to be talking about understanding inventory levels and so much more. So the link to sign up for this one is going to be in the comments. So go and check that out. Plus, we've got a brand new newsletter. So let's talk supply chain on LinkedIn has a weekly newsletter. We're talking a little bit about what we're talking about today on Thoughts and Coffee, but we're bringing you the news. We're bringing you some new content. So go and check it out. We definitely want to keep you updated and informed if you're not subscribed yet. And last but not least, we did a great post last week. I don't know if you saw this, but definitely for procurement leaders, according to their study, 82% of companies create and implement a business continuity plan to mitigate supply chain risks. And we talk all about that in this particular post. We talk about how organizations are addressing the biggest procurement challenges as well. All right, now it is time to bring up Eric. Hello, Eric. Where in the world are you today?
I am in Gurgaon, India, which is just outside of Delhi.
And
On
how's
my
that going?
annual trip to India. It's going well. Yeah.
Hot.
You can't see my giant belly, but I am eating so much food. It's not even funny. So that's out of screen. But
That's awesome. So for anybody who doesn't know who you are, tell us who you are and what you do.
so I am the senior technology editor at the Journal of Commerce, where I write about pretty much anything related to technology that is sort of supports logistics professionals in the movement of freight. So I really focus on things like transportation management and rate management and visibility and freight payment and a bunch of other categories that have come up. I also focus a lot on what forwarders and freight brokers need from a technology perspective, but also very much focused on what shippers need either directly or indirectly. And also every first and third Friday of every month, I'm also the host of Logtech Live on a little network called Let's Talk Supply Chain.
Well, and I think we've got some surprises in store for everybody when it comes to your show, which we cannot tell you right now. We cannot give you the secrets, but stay tuned because September, it's going to almost be a whole new show, right?
We have some interesting wrinkles to unveil this fall. So stay tuned.
I can't wait. I can't
I
wait.
don't want to steal my own thunder, but yeah.
So I'm glad that you did an introduction. Now I'm going to reintroduce myself because yesterday we released the newest episode of my LinkedIn newsletter called The Monthly Hustle. And I think I surprised a bunch of people by letting everybody know that I am a secret gamer. Did you know that, Eric? I think it was a bit of a surprise to you too.
I had no idea where. I don't even understand where you get the time to do gaming because you're doing all these other things. So are you like gaming while you're doing the other things? I don't know. So
kind of sometimes actually.
right.
Sometimes
Okay.
people don't even know because I do play some games on my phone. But this one is mostly talking about like Wii and like playing Super Mario. So I used to play Super Mario with my stepdaughter. It was something that we just really loved doing. And then my nephews came into the picture. And so we started playing the Lego games because the Lego games, you have to really like figure out how to get to the next stage and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, just reintroducing myself to the audience as a secret gamer. That is kind of my secret.
I'm very much a retired gamer. So I literally not play. I played maybe an hour of gaming in the last decade. So
well, I just bought a Switch, and the Switch is actually pretty cool. I wasn't sure how I was gonna like it because I'm such a Wii. Like I went Nintendo 64 and then Wii. And I had the Wii probably for like, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. But I do like the Switch. The Switch is good. I can play it on the TV. It's kind of like it used to be. But I can also take it on the plane. So if I'm not working on the plane, I can play some vids on the game. On the plane too. So.
I can only pass along my son. My 11-year-old loves the Switch. So yeah, I'll take his word for it. So.
All right, let's get to the.
One time he's made me play it. The buttons were too small for my fat fingers.
I did have to get used to the buttons, not gonna lie. Yeah. All right, let's get to the poll of the week. So we ask you all a question across the Let's Talk Supply Chain, LinkedIn and Instagram every Wednesday morning. And the question we asked you, how is your organization addressing the biggest procurement challenges? Now we had 56 votes on this one. 39% of you said boosting supplier collaboration. 30% of you said streamlining procurement ops. 16% of you said sustainable procurement focus, and 14% of you said advanced procurement tech. Now, Eric, what did you think about this? I'm a little surprised that the technology is only 14%.
It's funny. I think just in general, and I only focus on a really small slice of the like supply chain market. Like I'm
Yeah.
always amazed. You have shows and you're talking to people at every single like component of the supply chain. I'm very focused on the freight transportation logistics part of it. I've seen there's definitely been a slowing on the buy side and on the sell side over the last year and a half. It's very quiet. It's relatively quiet, I should say, compared to especially the pandemic era. So I'm not necessarily surprised to see that. Also, when you talk about procurement tech specifically, sometimes, companies end up buying general procurement software, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which covers procurement of a bunch of different things, none of which are procured, offline in the same way. So does the tech have the ability to, buy raw materials and office supplies and space on a ship, or do you need like specialized software for each of those like functional areas? When I think about procurement tech and I think about logistics, it's about like, do you have the tech to enable you to buy space on a ship or a truck? And like,
For free.
not every company has the budget to like buy that specialized software. So they end up doing it offline and relying on those other things, right? Relationships.
Yeah. Well, and also building that tech stack, right? You don't want too many systems doing too many different things.
Totally. The IT department does not want 18 different procurement tools.
No, they really don't.
Right? So yeah, that's a challenge for sure.
But what I did like to see was the 16% on the sustainable procurement, because I've been talking to Frances Edmonds. She's the head of sustainability over at HP Canada about this for years. And she keeps telling everybody sustainability starts with procurement. You have to start your sustainability practices and processes with the procurement department. So I was glad to see that 16%. I'd like to see it a little bit higher. But I did like to see collaboration in the forefront too, because I always say collaboration is the future of business. So that was really fun for me.
I've seen that on a sign somewhere.
Maybe right here. See, I never know where to point in the Anyways, all right, let's get to your market update. So here's the part of the show where I kind of like ask you to give us some insights. You're talking to a lot of people in the industry right now. Like, what's top of mind for them? What's keeping them up at night? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So obviously, I mean, anyone who's familiar with the Journal of Commerce knows, like, I think first and foremost, we're sort of thought of as the publication that covers ocean freight, import, especially on the import into the US side of things. The last 2 months have been wild. There has been an increase in demand, but the increase in demand has not been anything like the pandemic increase in demand, yet we've seen spot rates go absolutely bonkers over the last 8 weeks. Right when everyone thought this was going to be a year that shippers were going to have it their way in terms of rates, it went the total opposite way. A bunch of different reasons for that. There's no one reason. One of the big reasons is a bunch of capacity has gotten sucked up in the global liner network from obviously ships having to sail around Africa instead of through the Suez.
Right.
And that's impacting the amount of capacity that's available globally. So that has an impact even on like ships moving from Asia to North America that would never think of passing through the Suez or getting anywhere close to it. So what's interesting, like at a deeper layer around this, is we're hearing a lot from freight forwarders saying we are not getting the space that we would normally get, and carriers are being a little more parsimonious in terms of what they're allocating to us. You can read that a bunch of different ways. One of the ways is carriers want more of the direct business from shippers, and this is a time to go and get that. So yeah, it's a very interesting time right now for forwarders, especially smaller and mid-sized ones that don't have a huge amount of volume and can't walk in the front door of the shipping lines and say, give us space, So yeah, it's been an interesting couple months to say the least.
But that's sort of a balancing act, right? Like it's one thing for the steamship lines to say, "Oh, we want shipper direct," but they're only going to say take a certain amount of volume. They're not going to take every shipper's cargo. They want a certain amount of volume for it to make sense for them to go straight.
Yes, for sure. That still exists, but we're starting to see some shipping lines have the capability, sometimes empowered by like e-commerce platforms that they've built. E-commerce, not like Amazon e-commerce, but like, can I ask for a booking? Can I get a quote? Can I, that type of e-commerce, where they are actually going direct after shippers that 5 years ago they wouldn't have touched with a mile long, right?
Interesting.
Because it's easier if you use tech to attract them and conclude business with them, it's far less costly. The challenge for carriers previously was it didn't make sense to have their salespeople chasing after small volumes, right?
Yeah.
But if you can use digital channels to chase that, all of a sudden it changes the equation.
Huh.
So that's a little bit what Forwarder's up against.
Okay. All right. Well, I love that market update. I'm going to jump in here with a little bit of a market update of my own. So I had a friend of mine send me this video on Instagram, and I don't know if any of you remember this, but a couple of months ago on Thoughts and Coffee, I talked about electric highway where the electricity came from the ground, like the actual highway, and that highway is being built at the moment. This is something I believe is in Germany, and it's Germany's first electric highway, and it's charging trucks through like power lines on the highway. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, well, there's two different ways to think about this and look at this, but I thought this was pretty interesting. I mean, how many trucks do you know is actually going to have that thing that attaches to the lines? Anyways, I just wanted to share this with you. What do you think of this real quick, Eric?
So it reminds me a little bit of like, how you have those like iPhone charging pads?
Yes.
Where you can just plop it on
I
there.
just bought one.
Yeah. That's like the road that's powered underneath. And this is like old fashioned. I have to plug it in. Right. So,
yeah. So I don't know how long this is going to be in play, but anyways.
I mean, there's definitely limitations to this. This is like,
all right. Well, and also, I think you're going to be talking about those things. We should mention Inland. So I'm going to be at Inland. I'm going to be hosting Inland TV in September. If you're not registered, register now. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Inland with some of the articles coming up too. But definitely a great place to talk about all of these different things, including electric highways and all that kind of stuff. All right. So let's get to our first article. So this article, I really love this article. I hope you all have time to go and read this. It's how Dole is creating a zero waste supply chain and solving for food insecurity for the unhoused. Now, what this article, and I took so many notes, they're talking about food insecurity in Canada and how there's 8.7 million people that live in food insecurity households at the moment. I'm sure that number is a little bit bigger in the States. I don't have that number right now. But basically, they did this interview with the head of supply chain for Dole, and his response was that he wants to make sure everyone has access to food, and he's using his role as head of supply chain, his supply chain teams, his supply chain, to make sure that that happens. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to point this out was because we as supply chain professionals can really make a difference and an impact if we dive into our supply chains like he has done, and he actually maps it out in this particular article. So Eric, what did you think about this?
Well, so it's interesting, and you talk about the role that people in logistics, especially leaders in logistics, can be, or in supply chain can be, like change makers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It made me think of let's see, this was 3 years ago, because I remember this was the virtual version of TPM that we had to hold.
Oh yeah.
So I remember it pretty vividly. I interviewed the head of transportation, of international transportation for L'Oreal. And if you think about, like, if you picked out 20 people of who's the VP of transportation for L'Oreal, I guarantee you this guy would not be the one. He has a big beard. He's kind of a burly guy, not like some slim French person who's like very chic and all, right? So, and he talked to me about how he had come around to the idea that the company had to take its climate goals very seriously. So in other words, the company at a C level had these very audacious climate goals by 2030, and he was skeptical of them, and he's like, oh, whatever. Then one day it just sort of like dawned on him, and from that day he made it a priority that their carbon budget was more important than their transportation budget. Right. And so it's these little things that people who are in some influential role, whether it's Dole doing this for, food insecurity, or a major, makeup company, cosmetic company deciding to do something serious about their impact on the environment. Like, yeah, people have a lot more influence than they may even think they do.
It's so true. And I just wanted to bring up this part of the article because he actually maps out exactly how he did it and how he thought about setting this up so that he can make sure that everybody has access to food. And in 2023, 300,000 pounds of food they kept from spoiling. And that meant that 1 million people got some food just from that 300,000. And so it's just about mindset shift. It's about re-engineering your supply chain to figuring out how you can make that impact. But each one of us can make a huge impact. And I highly recommend everybody go and read that article because we don't even do that justice in 5 minutes. And I want to make sure that we do that. All right.
And the question, real quick, the question is he going to win like best supply chain?
So they already won. I think they won Zero Finished Product Waste Ecosystem 2023, but that's in Canada. So I'm hoping
but I mean, like, are you going to hear like that's the best shipper? Is he going to win the best shipper award? I don't know.
Hope so. I hope anybody who's listening nominates these people, nominates Dole and this guy for that, because I would really like to see him win an award and for us to be able to get this a little bit more global, right? This story, so that we can all encourage each other to make that impact. All right. So this next article is from Supply Chain Brain. It's talking about companies facing new normal of tariffs, trade regulation compliance. Now, last week on Thoughts and Coffee, I talked about forced labor with Patricia from Responsible Sourcing Network, because this is a huge deal, everybody. They are stopping shipments coming into the US, and you do not want your shipment stopped. So go and check out that episode of Thoughts and Coffee. It's on the Let's Talk Supply Chain YouTube. Now, we cannot do this one justice in 5 minutes either, because there is so much to talk about this, but a couple of highlights. Mexico took over China in 2023 as the #1 exporter to the USA. Now, Eric, talk to me a little bit about that point, because I think you're going to be talking about that at Inland 2024 in September, because some of the people I've been talking to are like, there's not enough labor in Mexico for us to bring all this business. So talk to me about that.
Well, so I think the first thing I'd mention is like there's some economists who've done some really interesting work about how much of that is sort of that growth in Mexico-US trade is actually volume that's essentially being diverted from Asia through Mexico into the US rather than what normally would have gone from Asia direct to the US, right? So Mexico is definitely benefiting from some of that. They're also benefiting from nearshoring, concerns about tariffs on Chinese goods, concerns about China-US war, forget trade war, like actual war. So Mexico is the beneficiary of all that. And to your point, it's not a plug and play like place to do business. There's amazing potential. There's tremendous potential from a supply chain perspective, but you don't walk in and just make up your own rules about how things work. So we're going to be talking, you mentioned it, Inland. We have a whole bunch of sessions. I think we have 5 different sessions that are touching on cross-border. But one of the interesting ones is I'm going to be talking to a colleague of mine at S&P Global who specializes in understanding the business climate in Mexico. And he's going to be telling people what it's like to do business in Mexico, not just logistics or supply chain business, but what you need to know, what's a challenge, what's a great opportunity from a setting up your business, who to partner with, all that sort of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that session.
That's going to be great. I think the other highlight for this article, and if you're over on my personal LinkedIn, don't worry, I'm going to put all the links to the articles once we finish here. I'll go put those in the comments. But another thing is government intervention is the #2 concern after cybersecurity for supply chain leaders. That's huge.
I heard this. So I was at a freight forwarder. Got invited to speak at a freight forwarder like customer conference, and there was a
Mhm.
cool little like round table of just their customers. And I was shocked. This was in March.
Mhm.
I was shocked that like the thing that most people brought up was concerns about tariffs increasing.
Mhm.
These were all people that are importing from Asia and China specifically. And there's a ton of concern, and it has only gotten stronger and more worrisome for these people as the year has progressed. So, I mean, by the time November, there's a little bit of a consequential thing happening in the beginning of November. And by that time, it's going to be probably a lot clearer what that tariff like picture looks like. But
Well, and this article actually talks about how those tariffs on China actually didn't really fix anything. So that's an interesting
oh,
part of this
imports grew.
article. I
Imports grew, even though the tariffs went in. Like,
So go and read that part of the article. The other part of it is when I talk about regulation, so this government intervention, not only on tariffs, but also on regulation, is that some of the companies in automotive, because the regulations are changing so much and so quickly, they can't keep up on it. They're saying that they'd rather take the penalty instead of comply. Now, that is a huge red flag for anybody changing the regulation as fast as they can, because people can only keep up as much as they can keep up. So, if we're changing it too much and people are like, I'd rather take the penalty, I mean, that's a really, really big problem, a really big red flag. So
I think a few trade compliance professionals just fainted, but
I know.
doubtful.
Well, I know, but I had to say it. I mean, it's one of
No,
the highlights of this article. So I highly recommend that you go and read this article because there's so much more to it. Now, I want to get to the last article really quick. We've got about 3 minutes on this one, but Canada is going crazy on strikes for some reason. I don't know. Our Liquor Board of Canada is on strike. Now we're looking at a possible railway strike with CN and CPKC. Now, this is going to affect anybody bringing product into Canada and then moving it into the States. There's a lot of retailers who are doing that. So this needs to be on your radar. And then, Eric, I think there's one more strike that you guys
yeah,
also reported on yesterday.
yeah. Just late Sunday, the dock workers at a terminal in Port of Vancouver said that they were going to strike, and the board that regulates them, the labor board that regulates them, said no, you can't. So that's another one to watch. I mean, we were talking earlier about even the Border Patrol, the Canadian Border Patrol has threatened to strike. So yeah, there's a lot of activity going on labor wise in Canada right now. So keeping people on their toes. So I'll leave
Yeah.
it at that.
I mean, the last article talked about regulations and tariffs keeping people on their toes. Now we're talking about, a bunch of strikes either at the Port of Vancouver with the railway workers in Canada. I mean, it's a little crazy, but this railway strike, I think they said 99% have voted for strike action.
Right.
And so I don't think we're going to see anything happen until the middle of this month, but it definitely needs to be on everybody's radar because there's going to be some ramifications and obviously more disruptions on disruptions, right? Because that's all we kind of keep seeing right now is disruptions. So
It'd be boring if there was no disruptions, right? Like no one would have jobs.
okay, but seriously, I think some supply chain professionals would at least like a little bit of a breather.
Like a summer break. Yeah, that would be nice.
A summer break. That would actually be nice. If everybody can wait for strike action for September so we can all have a summer break. I mean, that would be nice. All right. So when is your next show?
Not this Friday, but next Friday.
Okay. You got a guess for it yet? Or I'm going to put you
I
on the
do.
spot.
I would love to say, but he's figuring out if he has to meet a customer at that time, in which case I'll go to my backup guest. But if it's the guest that I've been planning on, we're going to be talking about freight payment, which is like this super like cottage part of, but it's money. Like I don't understand why more people don't care about freight payment. It's money. It's like actual money.
And freight payment has been one of the crux to a good supply chain, to be honest with you. I mean, if we think about original bills of lading, like that was a nightmare. If they got lost in transit, then you had to send another one. You had to sign the back of it, and then you had to send it. Like, anyways, We need to figure out freight payments.
I'll do another show about electronic bills of lading too, because that's like we need to figure out where that is too. So because that's totally an important topic.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll have Eric's show up on this Friday, hopefully, to let everybody know what you're going to be talking about. So you can click the attend button and go attend that. Any of our shows, click the attend button. If you can't attend live, we will send you the link so you can watch it a little bit later. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. And for everybody out there for joining us for Thoughts and Coffee. Next week, I've got Amy Morgan, our friend from Altana, joining me, and we're going to be talking all about compliance and all sorts of really fun stuff. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern.